regardless of the potential outcome of this criminal trial, regardless of whether or not you hold him responsible for the insurrection on January 6th. I would imagine, sir, the answer to that question of whether or not you are supporting him is unchanged at this time.
Well, sure. I mean, look, look at these trials. The way I look at it is this, and I always say I don't think anyone should worry about what I'm doing. I'm a Republican governor supporting, the Republican ticket. But look where America's going, right? There's a reason why we have all these trials and this chaos. And as your previous guest just outlined, it's unsure where any of them are going. Clearly, none of them are going the way the prosecution in each of these cases had anticipated. No one's being kept awake by the chaos of the TV drama, if you will, of these court cases. But you know what keeps Americans awake? Inflation, paying the rent, paying the bills. These are the things that drive anxiety and worry for families and individuals going forward. And therefore, they're more likely to have an impact when it comes to the actual election. So it isn't that you ignore all those other issues. A lot of people can say that January 6th was a disqualifier. I hated January 6th. It was a disaster. For me, it's not a disqualifier. For others, it may be. That's fine. That's those folks' opinions. But at the end of the day, people want to change. They just do. And so I'm kind of with, if you look at the polls, I guess I'm with the majority of Americans right now. And I'm as shocked as anybody, by the way, right? I mean, aren't we all pretty shocked that at this point in the election, Trump is actually winning? You'd think that Biden would have been up by 20 points, but this is how bad of a presidency, this is how bad of a political culture that Biden has delivered. And that matters to folks. They want to change, and they'll take even if kind of the worst of the Republican potential candidates, being Donald Trump with all of his chaos, they'd take that over this administration any day.
Well, Governor, I want to go back to something you just said at the beginning there, which is you question why people care what you might think. You're a Republican governor supporting a Republican presidential candidate. But there are some even in your own party who have suggested that people like you, who are highly popular in your state, should speak out. I'm referring specifically to former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, who in an opinion piece yesterday called you out by name, in which he was expressing disappointment in the number of Republicans falling in line behind former President Trump. He wrote, this is a quote, "The GOP will never rebuild until we move on from the Trump era." He says, leaving conservative but not angry Republicans like me no choice but to pull the lever for Biden. Unlike Trump, I've belonged to the GOP my entire life. This November, I am voting for a decent person I disagree with on policy over a criminal defendant without a moral compass. Governor, why don't you feel the same way?
Well, look, I can't tell you what a sitting lieutenant governor does, never mind care about what a former lieutenant governor of Georgia does.
But about the question, Governor, the question really is does policy difference override questions around moral clarity and character when we are talking about the highest office in the country and the leader of the free world?
Because results matter. And President Biden has not delivered results. Not only has he not delivered, not only is inflation a killer, right? I mean, it just crushes families. But he tries to tell people Bidenomics is good. All that stress you're feeling, it doesn't matter. It's that you're actually better off than you think you are. He's gaslighting the entire country. Oh, we don't have a crisis at the southern border. Of course we had a crisis. For years we had a crisis at the southern border. But he blatantly lies to folks. It's one thing in a leadership position to have problems, to have struggles, but you got to own them. You got to say, this is, if you're not willing to own a problem, then you're clearly not the person to fix the problem. And when you look at the average American, these issues, whether it be the border, whether it be inflation, these are the top issues that people are worried about, are going to judge on. And I'm no different than they are, right? So to say that I somehow should be different because some no-name lieutenant governor, former lieutenant governor says so, no, these are, it's all about getting results. Now, if other people want to put character, well, character matters. It does. Character does matter. And if you want to put that as your top priority, by all means, that is your choice, and you should vote. But what I don't like is a lot of these. There's a few Republicans out there that are saying, "Well, don't vote." No. If you don't like Trump, if you don't like Biden, just don't vote. There's nothing more un-American than not voting, right? We're in a political world. And a vote is a choice. You A or B. There's no gray area. You fill in this box or you fill in that box. And if you're 51-49 for a candidate, go vote 51-49. But do not complain that democracy is being eroded and democracy is at risk, but I'm not going to participate in democracy. That kind of nonsense is exactly why we get polarized, why exactly no one wants to participate in the process. We want and if you want to vote for Biden, God bless it. Go vote for Biden. That's great. Just get out there and vote. But I'm voting for Trump. I think a lot of Americans are voting for Trump. And it's not about Trump. It's not. I just want a Republican administration that puts individual rights first, that puts the economy first, that puts states first. So I will take the problems of Trump to get an administration that isn't standing on the shoulders of American families who built this country, stood for this country, and are just pissed off that liberal elites are trying to tell them how to live their lives, right? That angers people, and that has to be appreciated.
Okay, so Governor,
you have an administration going, all is well, but it's not.
Okay, so you say you want a Republican administration. When we spoke in New Hampshire ahead of the primary in your state, you did tell me that you don't think Donald Trump holds the values of the Republican Party. And in part, you said because he's not a true fiscal conservative. There were trillions of dollars added to the deficit during his administration, in part because of tax cuts. Tax cuts, by all indications, he intends to pursue again if he is in the Oval Office in 2025. So are all of the policy considerations or differences, perhaps, that would be brought in a Trump administration actually positive in your mind if he doesn't actually carry the values of your party?
Most of them are, sure. Yeah, because, again, it's who he brings in. And I have faith that you'll get, hopefully, a good Secretary of Treasury, a good Secretary of Commerce, a good EPA administrator, folks that are really on the ground and that don't try to do a one-size-fits-all big government solution out of Washington, but says, New Hampshire, you craft your own process. When it comes to education, California, Mississippi, Nevada, you're all different. So we're not going to have this one-size-fits-all big government approach that Biden is bringing. We're going to let states decide. We're going to believe in individual responsibility. And it's not just Trump that dictates that, right? It's his whole team. And so the hope is that he'll bring in a good team. What never gets any attention, and as a governor, I see it every day, and I understand their average American should be worrying about a lot of other things. But like this, the EPA administrator right now is an absolute disaster. Janet Yellen, the Secretary of Treasury, who said inflation's temporary, moved markets with those words in the wrong way, and now we're all paying for that, frankly, idiocy. I mean, Economics 101 told you that everybody knew inflation wasn't temporary. It's never happened before. But the Secretary of the Treasury is out there spinning a political line. That's not what we need. We need folks that just get the job done, believe in states, believe in individuals, believe in local processes instead of this one-size-fits-all stuff. That's the culture change that most Americans are looking for. And if they have to take a President Trump, and again, President and Congress lately, none of them really get a whole lot done. But if they're going to get a good Republican administration that lets states and individuals have more freedoms, they're going to take that. It doesn't have to be 100 or nothing. It's not all extremist or nothing. Sometimes 51-49 gets the job done in a ballot box.
Well, Governor, you've brought up the question of the economy a few times in this conversation. We did just get the new rankings by U.S. News for different states this year, in which New Hampshire is ranked number 2. In the economy, you're ranked 7th in the entire country. So what exactly is the disconnect between the success your state economy seems to be seeing and an economy you think is not working at the federal level and the policies that aren't working?
So again, we have surpluses. Our state's very strong. We have no sales tax. We have no income tax. We just abolished the interest and dividends. All your listeners, by the way, should reconsider their life choices and move to New Hampshire like everyone else. But the difference is this. We let locals decide. When it comes to schools, we let them decide. When it comes to the only tax that individuals pay is a property tax. Nobody likes it. But you know what? I don't have a single say on it. You decide at town meeting in your local cities. People come out and vote and fight how the potholes should be filled and what repairs need to be made to the water treatment plant and what happens in the classroom and the teacher contracts. That's not done at the state level. So by having that local control, you have more efficiency, more accountability, and a much more flexible system that can maneuver. You see these states like New York and California and God bless it, Washington, D.C., they're giant tugboats that have no chance of ever turning around, being nimble, or finding efficiency. So believe it or not, government can work well, and it works well when it's nimble, it gets out of the way, it lets businesses be successful, it doesn't penalize businesses, doesn't ban certain things. I mean, let's just look at what's going on with energy. I mean, banning the sale of liquid natural gas to our allies in Europe, that's an insane policy from Joe Biden, and it's having massive repercussions. We would never see anything like that out of a Republican administration, which drops prices, allows people to heat their homes. There's a reason New Hampshire has one of the lowest energy rates in the Northeast. We don't do big policies that drive rates up on individuals for political reasons. We really look at how these systems work, what the dynamics are, and how we get a better result. Not politically, but just a better result for the individual. It works.
Well, Governor, something else New Hampshire is experiencing alongside the other states or districts you mentioned, California, New York, Washington, D.C., are campus protests that we are seeing across the country, including places like UNH and Dartmouth, where we have actually seen police force get involved, arrests in some cases. If this continues, what are you prepared to do as governor to address them?
Oh, we work incredibly closely with the leadership at Dartmouth, the leadership at UNH. We make sure that it's very clear what the rules are, the guidelines, the accountability. We provide assistance on the state police side if they need, additional resources, whatever they might need. And in doing that, yes, we had arrests, but guess what? Not a class was missed, not a window was broken, right? The students that were clearly breaking the law, they're given a warning. When they're not, we go in, we remove those encampments, we make the arrest when they're in violation of law or policy, and we move on. And that's it. And if you're clear about it, and you have transparent discussions, and you show that immediate accountability, you don't kind of waffle in this woke, what should we do? I don't know. You got to be decisive. You got to be fair. I mean, the way our state police and law enforcement went in, just one at a time, individuals, nothing rough, nothing like that. Just, arrested individuals, processed them, and moved on and made sure everything went off without a hitch. But it all happens with transparency, early communication, and providing that resource and support so quick action can be taken when necessary. And you know who wants that the most? The community. They want the parents. They want to know that even when there's a protest, if things get out of line, guess what? There's normalcy here. We want free speech. We want peaceful protests. It's such an important part of our American democracy. But when you're breaking the law or breaking the rules, there's going to be accountability, and you got to follow through as leaders.